In this video, we begin practicing textual criticism on John chapter 9, verse 4. I should say from the very outset that there are going to be two lecture pauses in this video that are asking you to very much actively engage the content. Practicing textual criticism and getting better at it is something you can only do by actively engaging it. So I'm going to guide us through how to do this, but during the course of the video, actually doing some things, actually consulting some different course resources is going to be imperative to your learning of this skill set. So if you are not in a place, if you're not in a place watching this video where you can actively engage and sort of write some things down and consult some different materials, I'd ask that you come back and watch this video when you are at a place where you can do that, because your learning is going to be best supported by actively engaging the prompts that I'm going to ask you to do in this video. That being said, you should have your reader's edition of the Greek New Testament handy. If you also have another Greek New Testament, whether it be the UBS or the Nestle Aland, something like this, it would be helpful for you to grab that now as well, because I'm going to make some comments about the different apparatuses and how they're different between the reader's edition on the one hand and the non-reader's edition on the other one. So if you can sort of be able to see that physically, that will be of great benefit to you. So we're going to go ahead and jump in by looking at just that, the different apparatuses in these two respective texts. The one is what is required for Greek 1 and for this class, namely the reader's edition of the Greek New Testament. And what we're going to find is that the reader's edition has a lot less information. It's going to give you less textual variants, and it's going to give you less information in the apparatus. In fact, it doesn't really have an apparatus the way that the non-reader's edition does. So you look over here at the UBS, the non-reader's edition, you're given a number of different variants for passages around John chapter 9. And you're giving a lot more data, a lot more manuscript data of what manuscripts support which variants. And to zoom in on this a little bit more to see what it looks like, excuse me, we have down here our footnote to the asterisk up here. So the way that the reader's edition indicates a textual variant is putting an asterisk next to one of the words associated with that textual variant, and then down at the bottom, associating the chapter and verse number and indicating the different manuscripts that support the different readings. And these different readings are separated by these double slashes here. So this is the reading that the first variant, or this is the first reading of the variant that is actually up in the text itself, in the body of the text. And then the next two are going to be the variants that are not printed in the body of the text itself. When you look over to the UBS non-reader's edition, you can see you get a whole lot more. You're going to get some of the same information insofar as some of these manuscripts are the same, but you're going to get more manuscripts listed. And you're going to get something else as well that is really handy, and that is this letter right here. So what the editors in the UBS do is they sort of rank each variant based on how confident they are about the decision they made up here in the body on a rating from A to D. If it's rated an A, as is this one in 859, the committee is quite certain, or they're quite confident that about what they printed up in the body of the text. If it's a C or a D, they are less confident about what they printed up in the body, and they see some other pretty good options with respect to the different readings that are represented in different manuscripts. So all this to say, in the UBS non-readers edition, you get a whole lot more information, and you also get a hint about sort of what the committee makes of the different variant readings. And so if you have not acquired a different Greek New Testament that's a non-readers edition, I would encourage you to be on the lookout for one, and in the future acquire one, because you're going to get more information about these kinds of things. And it's useful to be able to know to have a sort of fuller picture, and also to have a fuller picture with respect to the number of different variants that are in the Greek New Testament. The Reader's Edition doesn't really give you all that many, usually maybe one per chapter of any given Greek New Testament text, whereas usually there are a lot more variants per chapter, and so you're going to get a better picture of what's going on in with respect to the different variants in the text. So we're going to move from my soapbox about why it might behoove you to buy a non-reader's edition of the Greek New Testament, to engaging reading what we do have in the reader's edition of the Greek New Testament. That is reading the apparatus, or reading the footnote here. And this is where it will be helpful for you to have your reader's edition in front of you, because you'll be able to look a little bit closer. You'll notice here that this is what's on your screen is probably a little bit small and difficult to read. So what I want you to do first is to identify which word in the text constitute the textual problem in both Greek and in English. So you're looking at the Greek text here, figuring out where there's variance, so what the differences are, and how those map onto English translation. So I want you to look at an English translation and then see if you can't figure out what the different English translations would be of the different variants in the textual problem. All right, so we have these two words in particular, hemos and me, being the words where there is variance. So two different words with a couple different options for what's going on here. So if we were to sort of take what we have in the footnote here, the different variant readings, and put it back into the passage as a whole, they would look something like this. This is going to be our first one, the one that is printed in the body of the text. This is going to be the second variant reading that's comes after the first set of parallel slashes, and this is going to be the third one coming after that second set of parallel slashes. So the differences are going to have to do with the first and last word here, hemos and me. So what we have in the first version here is we must do the works of the one sending me. So this day means it is necessary. And then the hemos here is the first person plural personal pronoun in the accusative, which is serving as the subject of this infinitive ergedzesthai. So we are the ones doing the works of the one sending me. So Jesus is speaking, saying we all must do these works of the one sending me. Namely, the Father sends me. In the next version, we similarly have we must do the works of the one sending, but who is sent is, again, the plural, is us rather than me. So everyone is sent, everyone to whom Jesus is sending is sent to match this hemos at the beginning. And then the last one, we have a first person singular in the front and the end. So I must do the works of the one sending me. So our variance here is going to be between the pronouns and whether they are plural or whether they are singular. And so what we're going to do next, and this is where we're going to start to sort of get into the real nitty-gritty of reading the manuscript. And this is where it will be helpful for you to be able to write some things down and to be able to engage these different resources here. So what I'm going to ask you to do is take these different variant readings and assess or write down some information, sort of gather some data, some exegetical data about the different manuscripts that are associated with these different readings. So what does B mean? What does D mean? What does P66? What does P60 or 75 mean? What does this Hebrew aleph mean? What does this L mean? What does this W mean? What does this aleph with a 1 mean? What does this A, C, 33, and BYZ? What do these all mean? These are symbols that are standing for particular manuscripts. So what are the names of these manuscripts and what date do they come from? So this is all going to give you information about the names and the dates. So the different places that you might go to get the information about this is the Blomberg reading that's on Moodle, the lecture slide on the New Testament textual criticism lecture, the and then a Wikipedia link that I put on Moodle. So it's not very often I will suggest that you engage Wikipedia as an academic endeavor, but this is a really, really handy resource that gives you lists of manuscripts of the uncials, of the minuscules, and of different papyri, and it not only tells you the name and the date, but when you click on them, it will also give you more information about that particular manuscript. So a really handy and sort of easy to maneuver and easily accessible material. So what I would like you to do is go ahead and on a piece of paper, write down the different symbols and write down the name of the manuscript that they refer to and when that manuscript is dated to. This should take you probably about 10 to 15 minutes. And once you've done this task, come back. I'm going to put the information up there so you can double check yourself. All right, what we have with respect to our first reading, B is going to be Codex Vaticanus, which I showed you in that last lecture video. Nice, very, very beautiful manuscript containing the Bible and then some from the 4th century CE. And then we have Codex Bezae from the 5th century, also attesting to the reading that's actually printed in the body. And I should note that the D is put into parentheses here because there's a really slight difference in D. That is to say, Codex Bezae has de before hemos. So these two words are just flip-flopped, but it still does have the first person plural personal pronoun there. With respect to our second reading in this variant, we have P66 and P75, one very early papyrus from about 200 CE, so one of the first witnesses to the New Testament in textual form. From P66 attesting to this reading, and P75 from the 3rd century, Papyrus 75 from the 3rd century also attesting to this reading. Sinaiticus from the 4th century is going to attest to this reading, and the asterisk here, remember, means the original reading of Sinaiticus that was later changed. We're going to see that show up again over here in the next column. L refers to Codex Regius from the 8th century, and W from refers to Codex Washingtoninus from the 4th or 5th century. Excuse the 8th century in there. It should just say 4th or 5th century there. And then 5 different manuscripts attesting, well, there are more than 5 and more than 4 and more than 2 attesting to each one of these, but there are 2 and 4 and 5 presented in our Greek Reader's Edition, respectively. But the 5 that are presented here, the first is going to be the first corrector or the first changer or amender of Sinaiticus. So that's what this 1 means after the olive. So it was referring to the same manuscript, but the asterisk is meaning the original, and 1 is the corrector. And if there were subsequent correctors, we would get 2, 3, etc. A is going to refer to Alexandrinus, a uncial from the 5th century. Remember, all of our large capital letters are referring to uncials, or what are also called majuscules. Codex Ephraemi, Ephraemi Rescriptus from the 5th century. 33 is referring to a minuscule. Remember, minuscule is that small sort of cursive handwriting from the 9th century. And BYZ is an abbreviation meaning most Byzantine manuscripts from the 9th to 14th-ish century are going to support this reading. So then what you do here, now that we sort of have this data out there, then you can sort of do the calculus of thinking about which one of these readings is best supported by the manuscript evidence. This is what is called the external evidence. The manuscript evidence does one of these seem to be best supported? And when it comes to the manuscript evidence, there's something, well, I should say from the get-go, there's something subjective to this. The different, there's not this is not an exact science, and that different individuals are going to weigh evidence differently. But in my mind, these papyri, as far as external witnesses go, play a very they say a lot, or they have a lot of weight in assessing this manuscript, as does Sinaiticus. Um, these these ones over here sort of are also strong witnesses, B and D, but the fact that we have Sinaiticus, Washingtoninus, and the two different papyri, or one of them being a particularly important papyri, suggests that this one has really the strongest external weight. So when I summarize here, I would say external evidence seems to favor this middle one here. I'm going to go back and zoom in a little bit more, and this will be relevant in a number of ways, but I wanted to make one observation of how this will be relevant when we come back to this verse. So we don't only weigh external evidence when we are engaging or assessing a textual variant. We also engage internal evidence. That is to say, thinking about how the changes might have come about. So what is it about the text itself, which that might explain the presence of different readings. And that's what we're going to do the next time we engage New Testament textual criticism. But the thing I want to note here is that the strongest manuscripts are all going to be sort of over here in these two columns. And what is notable about that is that they both support this Hemos Dei, so that the first person plural at the beginning of the particular passage, rather than the first person singular as we have here. And then so we might think of sort of weighing these things differently. We could think of the issue of Eme versus Hemos as a different issue than the issue of me versus Hemos at the end of the sentence there. So that weighing all this evidence strongly suggests that Hemos Dei is the most strongly supported reading, and then we might consider differently whether the Hemos or the Me at the end, how that one is supported differently on the basis both of this external evidence that we've been weighing, but also on the basis of internal evidence about which variant might explain the other one. And again, that is when we return to New Testament textual criticism. When we do part 2 of this lecture in a few weeks here, we'll return to this question and look at it from the perspective of internal evidence from within the gospel itself, not thinking as much about the external evidence, that is to say, the manuscript witnesses.